Let me tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. The man or woman you're trying to fix, he or she didn't ask you to fix them. You met him exactly as he is, emotionally unavailable, dealing with unresolved trauma, not ready for what you're offering. And instead you're accepting that reality and walking away. You decided, I can help him. I can be the one who gets through to him. I can love him into healing. But here's the question you need to ask yourself. Did he ask you for that help? Did he say, please fix me? Did he request that you put your life on hold to manage his emotional growth? Or did you just volunteer that role without asking him? Because if he didn't ask you, if you assigned yourself the job of being his therapist, his emotional support system, his rehabilitation center, then you need to understand something critical. Your unsolicited help isn't helping him, it's enabling him. The third truth about the I can fix him or her delusion is perhaps the most painful. You know, the men you're trying to fix aren't asking you to fix them, and your unsolicited emotional labor is keeping both of you stuck in a dynamic that prevents real growth and real connection. Here's what nobody tells you. Here's what nobody tells you about the I can fix him or her pattern. That they didn't ask you to fix them. You know, you met them exactly as they are. Instead of accepting that reality and walking away, you decided I can help. You decided to do that. You volunteered that role. You assigned yourself the job of being their therapist, their emotional support system, their rehabilitation center. And now you've exhausted yourself. You know, you're resentful, heartbroken, wondering why they're not appreciating your effort, why they're not changing, why they're not becoming the person you've been working so hard to help them become. But they never asked you to do that work. And your unsolicited emotional labor isn't helping them. It's enabling them to avoid doing their own work. You know, think about what happens when you try to fix someone who hasn't asked to be fixed. You take on their emotional work. You manage their feelings. You try to heal their wounds. You give them endless patience, understanding, and support. And what do? And what do they learn? That they don't have to really do the work themselves. That someone else will manage their emotions for them. That they can stay exactly as they are, broken, unavailable, not growing, and still have someone loving them, supporting them, waiting for them. Your help isn't actually helping. That's the thing, it's enabling. It's allowing them to avoid the discomfort of their own growth. It's preventing them from hitting the bottom that would force them to change. It's giving them all the benefits of your love without requiring them to do any of the work to become someone capable of receiving and reciprocating that love. Think about Summer Walker's pattern. Every time she's with a man who's clearly not ready, clearly not available, clearly not doing the work, she stays, she supports, she tries to love him through it. And what happens? You know, he stays exactly the same because, I mean, why would he change? He's getting everything he needs, her love, her support, her patience, without having to do any of the uncomfortable work of actually healing. Her staying isn't helping him grow at all. It's enabling him to stay stuck. And she's exhausting herself in the process, wondering, you know, why her love isn't transforming him, never realizing that her unsolicited emotional labor is actually preventing the transformation she's actually hoping for. Because here's the truth about growth. People don't change because someone loves them enough. They change because staying the same becomes more painful than the work of actually changing. And when you're constantly cushioning someone from the consequences of their emotional unavailability, when you're staying despite their lack of effort, when you're giving them love they haven't earned, even when you're being patient with their behavior that should result in you leaving, you're removing the pain that would motivate them to change. You know, you think you're helping, you think you're love, you're patient, your support is what they need. And I get it. You think it's what they need to heal, but what they actually need is to experience the consequences of their behavior, to actually lose someone they care about because they weren't ready, to sit with that discomfort of their own unavailability, to hit that rock bottom that forces them to finally do the work. And you're staying, think about it, your staying is preventing that from happening. Think about your own patterns. How many times have you stayed with someone who wasn't ready, believing that your love could help them heal? How many times have you been patient with behavior that should have resulted in you walking away? We've all been guilty of it. It happens to the best of us. How many times, though, have you given second chances, third chances, endless chances, hoping that your unconditional support would finally motivate them to change? And how many times did they actually change? How many times did your patience result in actual growth? Think about it. How many times did your unsolicited emotional labor actually fix them? And if you're honest, the answer is probably never or rarely. And when they did change, it wasn't because of your love. It was because they finally decided to do the work themselves. Because you can't do someone else's healing for them. You can't love them into growth. You can't be patient enough, supportive enough, understanding enough to make them choose to change. They have to actually choose to do it themselves. And they'll only choose it when staying the same becomes more painful than the work of changing. So as long as you're there, cushioning them from that pain, loving them despite their lack of effort, staying despite their unavailability, they have no reason to change. You're not their savior, you're their enabler. And this dynamic isn't just hurting you, it's hurting them too. Because by staying, by doing their emotional work for them, by managing their feelings and cushioning them from consequences, you're preventing them from developing the skills they need to actually have a healthy relationship. You know, you're teaching them that they don't have to show up. They don't have to do the work. They don't, you know, they can stay emotionally unavailable and still have someone who loves them. And that's not love. You know, that's codependency. And that's keeping both of you stuck. Think about what real love actually looks like in this situation. Real love isn't staying with someone who's not ready and trying to fix them. Real love is recognizing they're not ready and walking away, because walking away might be the wake-up call they need to finally do the work. You know, real love isn't being endlessly patient with behavior that's hurting you. You know, real love is having boundaries, because boundaries teach people how to treat you and give them the opportunity to rise to meet your standards. You know, real love isn't doing someone else's emotional work for them. Real love is allowing them to experience the consequences of their choices, because consequences are often what motivate real change. You think about your love, you know, you think you're being loving by staying, but you know, you're actually being enabling. You think you're helping them by being patient, but you're actually preventing them from experiencing the discomfort that would motivate growth. You think you're showing them what real love looks like by giving unconditionally, but you're actually teaching them that they don't have to earn love. You know, don't have to show up, don't have to do the work, and that's not helping anyone. Here's what you need to understand. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone who's not ready is to walk away. Not to punish them, not to abandon them, but to allow them to experience the natural consequences of their emotional unavailability. Let them sit with the discomfort of losing someone who loved them because they weren't ready. To give them the space to do their own work without you managing their emotions for them. To stop enabling their stagnation by staying despite their lack of effort. Your walking away might be exactly what they need. It might be the bottom that forces them to finally get help. You know, it might be the wake-up call that motivates them to do the work they've been avoiding, or it might not. You know, it might not. They might stay exactly the same. They might never do the work, but either way, it's not your responsibility. Their healing is not your job. Their growth is not your project. Their emotional availability is not something you can create through love or through your love. They have to choose it, and they'll only choose it when they're ready. And you staying trying to fix them, doing their emotional work for them, doesn't make them ready. It just exhausts you while enabling them to stay stuck. Think about the men in Summer Walker's past. Did her staying help them grow? Did her patience make them ready? Did her unconditional love transform them into available partners? No. They stayed exactly who they were because they had no reason to change. She was there regardless. She was there. And she exhausted herself trying to love them into healing while they stayed comfortably unavailable, receiving all the benefits of her love without doing any of the work to become someone capable of reciprocating it. That's what happens when you try to fix someone who hasn't asked to be fixed. You exhaust yourself. You know, they stay the same and both of you remain stuck in a dynamic that just prevents real growth and real connection. So stop doing their work for them. Stop managing their emotions. Stop cushioning them from the consequences of their unavailability. Let them experience what it feels like to lose someone because they weren't ready. Let them sit with that discomfort. Let them decide if they want to do the work, if they want to do the work to change. And if they don't, if they stay exactly the same, then, you know, you have your answer. They're not ready. And no amount of your love, no patience or support will make them ready. So you walk away, you know, not with anger or resentment, but with clarity, you know, with the understanding that their healing is their responsibility, not yours, that you can't fix someone who isn't doing the work to fix themselves, that your unsolicited emotional labor isn't helping them, it's enabling them. So this is the third truth. The men you're trying to fix, or women, aren't asking you to fix them. Your unsolicited emotional labor isn't helping them grow, it's enabling them to stay stuck. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away and let them experience the consequences that might finally motivate real change.